Welcome to Encounter Culture. I'm producer and editor Andrea Klunder.
And I'm Emily Withnall, host of Encounter Culture and editor of El Palacio.
And we have some exciting news. We are beginning season 9, coming off of 2 sets of awards for both Encounter Culture and El Palacio. Emily, what happened this year?
So we won 14 awards in total for El Palacio and for Encounter Culture. It's all for 2024 content.
Hold on, 2024 content?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's all for 2024 content because the way the awards season works, you submit all of your work from the year at the end of the year, and then you find out the following year. So we've done amazing work this year as well, but we won't know what awards we're winning for 2025 until next year. But yes, we did win 14 awards for the magazine and for the podcast. 6 of the awards came from New Mexico Press Women earlier this year, including a silver award for the Encounter Culture podcast. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to look at the list because there's so many.
I have to look at the list because we won so many awards.
So many. Yeah, so there were 2 first place wins, 3 second place wins, and 1 third place win. And that was a range of things. It included the podcast. It was editing, including editing of a full issue, which for New Mexico Press Women, we won for the fall issue of 2024. And then I won a first place award for editing from the National Federation of Press Women. And then 7 awards from the International Regional Magazine Association. I went to Calgary a few weeks ago to this conference and received all those awards there. I had no idea until the actual awards ceremony that the magazine and podcast won these awards. And so the podcast again won silver there. And we were finalists for Magazine of the Year.
Wow.
Yes, and we had some excellent writers and photographers win awards again. There was a gold award for Nikki Lewis, who wrote an essay in the winter 2024 issue about her experience with internment. She's Japanese American. She's 80, I forget how old she is, but she was 4 when she experienced that, and her dad was sent to the internment camp in Santa Fe. And so it was a really moving, powerful essay that she wrote for the magazine. So I was really excited to see her win that gold award for that essay.
So what does all of that mean? Like, what is the significance of winning awards in our industry? Like, is it just warm, fuzzy feelings? Is it...
Well, for me, it felt very validating. El Palacio is a very small team of just me as its only full-time staff. I do have a lot of help. I have an excellent design team that I can call on and people on contract who do lots of different pieces of it. But I am the only full-time staff member. And so to see the magazine and podcast win 14 awards for 2024 was really validating, really encouraging, because I do work very hard to edit these stories, to curate them, to find the right writers to tell very specific pieces of history and art and culture in New Mexico. That's a really important part of it for me. It's one thing to have, for example, a writer write about Japanese American internment and how it happened in Santa Fe. And it's another thing entirely to find a woman whose dad was actually at the one here who can write about it from a personal experience. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the awards are recognition for incredible writers and photographers that I get to work with, a design team that I get to work with, a wonderful podcast producer that I get to work with. And also, I think elevates the magazine and podcast for readers and listeners so they know they're actually listening to really high quality content.
Who is El Palacio for?
The magazine was founded in 1913, a year after the state was founded. So the magazine is just 1 year younger than the state of New Mexico. And its readership and the magazine itself has evolved a lot over the last 112 years. It started off as an archaeology pamphlet, and now it is something that's much broader and has a broader appeal to a general readership. But the readership is people who are very interested in art, history, and culture in New Mexico, which art, history, and culture covers almost everything. So I think that the magazine and the podcast would appeal to almost everyone. I think there's something in it for everyone. And the depth of the interviews that we do on the podcast and the articles that are published in the magazine are just really, they go beyond, what you might find in a tourism magazine or something like that. There really is a depth. I see my work in this role as creating an archive. And so it's not just for now, it's building what we know about history through original research, often for the magazine, so that we can look back at it and have that, because it's a magazine. It's not timely articles. It's not breaking news. It's things that people can return to over and over again.
And I was just looking into our podcast data recently, and for sure we have the highest listenership in the Southwest region. So New Mexico leads our listenership, but followed closely behind by states like Arizona, Texas, Colorado, California, even up to Oregon and Washington, and across the United States. But we actually have listeners in other countries as well, which just kind of goes to show the broad appeal of a lot of these topics. And also, I think that New Mexico is one of those destinations for a lot of travelers and tourists. And so the articles and the episodes really provide a rich context for people who are visiting the state.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And there's a lot too, because, some of our divisions within the Department of Cultural Affairs include things like the Office of Archaeology and the Natural History Museum. And so when we talk about dinosaurs or, how long have people been on this continent and things like that, I think it does have a very broad appeal, because those are questions that people are thinking about no matter where you live.
And recently you had the opportunity to do a reading. This is part of a series, right, of readings that you're doing for El Palacio?
Yeah. So when I started my role here, doing panel readings for every issue. So the issues come out quarterly. I invite a few contributors from each issue to come and read a little bit of their article or essay. And then there's a Q&A. And the Q&A part is the part of the event that's really interesting, because the people who come are very engaged and ask very thoughtful questions, and it really expands the conversation beyond the page. And so I've been doing these events, and then most recently I did a special one with just the author of the article about the Gallup Coal Wars that appears in the fall 2025 issue of El Palacio. And the reason we did a special one is because I couldn't get all the panelists from the fall issue that I wanted all the way to Gallup. It's a long drive. And so I invited just the author to go with me to Gallup and do an event there, because this history about the striking miners in 1933 to 35 in the coal mines there is still very present in the town of Gallup. It's still something that's known and talked about, even though it's almost 100 years later. And so I really wanted to bring him there, and he gave a presentation and showed some of the historic photos that we also have in the magazine that go with his piece. And it was a really dynamic moment, because we had someone in the audience who is the grandson of one of the men who was arrested for shooting the sheriff during this incident.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And we had the current sheriff of Gallup in the room. He was talking about how he wanted to see some of these historic images because they didn't have any clear photos of the sheriff who was shot. And he was the only sheriff in Gallup's entire history who was shot while on duty. And so we had this real mix of people in the audience who were coming at the history from very different perspectives. And the writer himself is continuing to write about this event. The article in El Palacio is just the beginning of a longer project for him. But he met people in that room who could help him identify people in photos that he was having trouble identifying.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it's an ongoing, project that's going to happen. And he's made these connections now with people in Gallup.
And we're doing an episode related to this in this upcoming season of Encounter Culture.
We are, yeah. So David Correa is the author, and he's going to come on Encounter Culture and talk about Tom Malarkey, who took those historic photos of the events that happened between 1933 and 1935 in Gallup, as well as some of the other things that he was doing in Gallup as a kind of Western photographer. He ran a photo shop, and he had a very interesting sensibility as a photographer. And so David's going to be talking to us about that.
What else do we have in store for our listeners this season on Encounter Culture?
So we'll be talking to Jennifer Hasty. She directs Wonders on Wheels, which is the Department of Cultural Affairs mobile museum. It travels around the state. They have this amazing big RV that has a mini exhibition inside of it. And every year they change the theme. So we're going to be talking, since we're kind of straddling 2 years now, we're going to be talking about their current exhibition, which focuses on the historic sites, of which we have many, and we just added a new one in the southern part of the state. So we'll be talking about that. And then next year, they're going to be focusing on, New Mexico's role in US 250. Of course, New Mexico was not a part of the country 250 years ago. So we have a very unique aspect of the story to tell. So we'll be talking to her about how she's representing that in that rolling exhibition space next year.
Do people call it the WOW van behind the scenes?
Yes, they do. It is called the WOW van.
I always see it in our notes, in our documents that way. And I'm like, do people actually call it that? Or do they say the full Wonders on Wheels name?
Right. Yeah. No, we call it WOW, but for listeners who've never heard of it, WOW does stand for Wonders on Wheels.
What else do we have coming up in the season?
We're also talking to Kelly Jenks. She is a professor at New Mexico State University, and she is working on an excavation of an old land grant community that has a really rich, interesting history. I don't think that I can do it justice myself right now, but she's going to be here to talk about that project because it's very exciting and is one of the few excavation projects that's being led by a Hispanic woman that pertains to a Hispanic community on land grant land.
And we're returning to one of your favorite topics, which of course is poetry.
Yes. Yes, so much poetry coming up. The spring issue of El Palacio is filled with poetry, and we're going to have Manuel Gonzalez, who also goes by Manny Gonzalez. He is our new New Mexico State Poet Laureate, our third Poet Laureate. So far, we've only had two before this, and they each have served 3-year terms. He will also serve 3 years. But yeah, our outgoing Poet Laureate, Lauren Camp, we've already interviewed on the podcast. I got to have a conversation with her a few seasons ago now. And he's also just going to be a very different kind of poet laureate. His background is slam poetry. Mm. And so, he'll be bringing some of that sensibility to his work in the state in the next few years.
But poetry is spring. We kind of jumped ahead of the upcoming winter issue for El Palacio. What can you tell us about the upcoming winter issue? When does it drop? How can people get it? What are you excited about in this winter's issue?
Yeah, so the winter issue is filled with a lot of exciting historic articles, exhibition articles. One of the articles features Taylor Mesilla Historic Site, which is our newest addition to our historic sites under the Department of Cultural Affairs. It's in the town of Mesilla, right outside of Las Cruces, and their grand opening is very soon, just around the corner. And then there's an article about the excavation work that's happening at Acoma Pueblo in conjunction with the Office of Archaeology, but it's being led by the people of Acoma to ensure that it is culturally respectful and sensitive. So there's an article about that. There's an exhibition at the National Hispanic Cultural Center right now that focuses on the artists who were also Chicano activists during the Chicano movement at the New Mexico Highlands University in the 1970s. But this writer has chosen to focus primarily on this photographer, Adelita Medina, who captured the role of women and children during the movement, which is an aspect of the movement that's not typically talked about as much. So that's very exciting. There is an article about Site Santa Fe, which is a museum that's not a part of Department of Cultural Affairs, but partnered with the Department of Cultural Affairs this year with this huge citywide takeover of this exhibition called Once Within a Time. And one of the exhibitions in that was at the Palace of the Governors. And so there's a writer who wrote about the two artists who kind of interrogate the histories of colonization in New Mexico through various lenses, including nuclear colonialism and some other topics. And so the writer really breaks those themes down in that artist's work in a really smart way. What else is in there? Oh, the Governor's Arts Awards are a big deal every year in New Mexico. And so we have some new awardees who have received that award. And so there's a profile in the winter issue of Nacha Mendez, who is a Latin musician. It's like a global Latin sound. And she plays in 2 different locations every week in Santa Fe and is very well known for her music and presence here. And so there's a wonderful profile of her in the winter issue.
When does the winter issue drop and how can people subscribe?
The winter issue drops December 1st. People can subscribe at elpalacio.org/subscribe. You can order a single issue there. You can subscribe for 1 year or 2 years. You can also, if you're local to Santa Fe, you can subscribe by becoming a member of the Museum of New Mexico Foundation. And as a perk, as a part of that membership, you get free entrance to the Santa Fe museums and you get a issue of El Palacio every time it's published.
And speaking of the Santa Fe museums, winter holiday season is a big time for New Mexico. There's so many exciting things that are happening. I wish that I was local so I could take advantage of them. But in your work with DCA, what are some of the events that you've seen behind the scenes of?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I got to go to Jemez Historic Site and set up all the farolitos around the church and the ruins that they have there. And I actually hesitate to give a number of how many we put up. I know I personally put up like hundreds, but there were thousands and thousands and thousands of these beautiful glowing paper bags set up to kind of highlight the arches of the walls and the doorways and things. And so we were actually there on the night that they let the photographers in so they could get their beautiful nighttime shots of all these glowing paper bags on the ruins. But that's one event that happens. We have tons of events that you can find on nmculture.org/traditions. So if you go to that website, you can see the whole range of events. New Mexico is big on bonfires and cider and walking around at night to see the pretty, not just the pretty Christmas lights, but the farolitos in particular. We're big on that. So
it sounds so exciting. I am looking forward to this upcoming season of Encounter Culture. Of course, we encourage everyone to follow the podcast in your favorite listening app, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or even YouTube now. I'm also looking forward to the winter issue of El Palacio, so we encourage everyone to check the show notes for the links of where you can find Encounter Culture, El Palacio, and all of the wonderful winter holiday events that New Mexico Department of Cultural Affairs has planned for us all.